So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this. I'm gonna give you like probably the hard question, which is you've been publishing this magazine. You've had lots of submissions. You've put out, I'm sure, a ton of different people's work. Now you got to pick a favorite. I mean, what are the names that you just are super excited to have been able to kind of feature in your magazine and be a part of kind of their.
Oh man, it's really hard to choose, but I think one of the coolest things is that starting in our second issue, we started publishing all new Dreamlord stories from Adrian Cole. I don't know if you're familiar with Adrian Cole, but he got his start writing Sword and Planet stuff in the early 70s. His first books were the Dreamlord trilogies published through Zebra Books. And I got to talking to him about it, and because he had a mutual friend with the guy who was working on a website with us, and we just got to talking. And I asked, "Would you be interested in writing some new Dreamlord stories?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." And so he's been writing new stories set in the future of this original trilogy that he wrote in the 70s for us. And now we actually secured the rights to reprint an omnibus collection of the original trilogy from the 70s and a companion volume of the new stories that he's been writing for the Dreamlord since 2016.
Oh, that's super cool.
So like that's really cool to me. That's about as cool as us publishing a lost Edgar Rice Burroughs story.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, that's like really inserting yourself into like the story and the history of like this type of fiction, frankly. And who doesn't want to cement themselves in in the history of something?
Yeah, absolutely. It's and like I said, we've been doing a lot of exciting stuff over the years and had a chance to work with a lot of authors. And if anybody has been following us, they'll see a lot of names of people who've been there just about every year, if not every year. Like I think we've probably had at least one Misha Burnett story in every year. We recently started serializing Michael Tierneys Wild Stars novels that he's been working on those for nearly 4 decades now. And so it's been really cool working on those too.
Oh, that's so cool. So, kind of moving along, what are for me? While I love the stories and the creation and all that, it's super important to me because so few people focus on it so much. Is to talk about like how do we get these ideas out to more people? How do we turn eyes towards us? Obviously, you've managed to grow and do this since 2016. So clearly you have some experience with building and growing an audience. What are, I guess, we'll start with the things that you think are most important to that end, the things that have really helped you do that?
I think one of the places where we have an advantage is that we're a magazine and we have multiple authors in each issue, So that's always going to be an attention multiplier. It's not just one person trying to get their stuff in front of the world. It's everybody who's involved trying to get that one thing out there. So, instead of having one person say, "Hey, you need to check this thing out," you've got 10 people saying, "Hey, you need to check this one thing out." And you have that just built into it by its very nature as an anthology. And I think that cannot be underestimated or understated in its importance. And I think that's one of the reasons why you're starting to see these magazines and anthologies making a comeback.
Well, I can tell you from like a consumer end of things, I can't wait to go and pick up a copy of the magazine just because I want to. It's like I'm going to get a bunch of news stories from a bunch of authors I don't know anything about, and maybe I'll pick up a new favorite artist today, someone that I'm like really excited about their writing style, and it's a little easier to say bite down on a price point when I know I'm gonna be. I'm going to be having a broader experience than, say, maybe locking myself into a single story that I may or may not like. I don't really know.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we've tried to do is keep our price point relatively low over the years. We've had to go up a little bit just so that we can keep our discounts for our contributors at a reasonable rate. But $14 or 14.99, you're getting about 70,000 words of fiction, which if you put it into a regular sized book, it would be a 200 to 250 page book. So even though the magazine's like 150 pages, I know nobody thinks in terms of word count unless they're an editor or an author. So everybody's like, so how many pages is it? It's like, well, it's this way, this the other way.
Well, and is it a magazine print? What size font is it?
Yeah, well, and that's one of the things we actually did early on was we kind of settled on a larger sized font. Originally, it was so that we could pad out enough pages that Amazon would give us a spine when we printed them. But we had a lot of people say, we really appreciate that your magazine is easy to read because it's got the double columns, it's got the nice, easy, legible font. So we just kind of stuck it out with the size 14 font that we found and have gone with that ever since.